A summer afternoon. A gentle breeze sways the old porch. A boy sits quietly in front of an empty wooden chair, once his grandfather's seat, where his father only visited briefly before disappearing again into the chaos. He holds in his hand a handmade card, letters still shaky, watercolor still wet. The small message reads, "I love you, Dad." But the chair remains empty, as it does every year, as it does in every memory. In that moment, time seems to melt. A void appears between what happened and what should have happened. It's not merely the absence of a person, it is the absence of a symbol, a father, a pillar, a presence that should have shaped the soul of the child. Carl Jung once said, "Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent, the unlived lives, the repressed emotions, the forgotten dreams. All of it, if not faced, becomes the shadow. Not just the man's personal shadow, but the shadow of an entire generation. And then quietly, it is passed down, like an invisible wound, to the next generation, a legacy soaked in silence and sacrifice. So then, when we celebrate Father's Day, what are we truly honoring? Is it the man who sacrificed his youth for dreams that never called his name? The father absent at the dinner table, but always present on the monthly bill? Or is it something long forgotten, buried deep in the subconscious, a sacred archetype Jung called the father? Jung believed every human carries an inner map of the soul, where these archetypes exist like ancient monuments. They do not stem from personal memory, but are part of the collective unconscious. In this realm, the image of the father is not just a biological parent, but a symbol of authority, order, discipline, boundaries, law, and the first light in a child's darkness. But what happens when that image never shows up properly? A child growing up without an emotionally present father doesn't just lose a person, they lose their inner compass. They don't learn limits, they don't learn stability, they don't learn how to face themselves. And then, one day the child becomes a man. But inside, he's still a boy searching for his father's gaze, still waiting for approval, still longing for a guide that never arrived. We live in an age where the image of the father has faded. Media portrays fathers as clumsy, lost figures, men who don't understand their children, who don't understand themselves. They are silent, artificially strong, emotionless, distant, and so they are also absent. Meanwhile, inside them, the shadow grows. Jung described the shadow as the rejected part within ourselves, the traits society, culture, or even our parents told us to hide, to bury. For many men, the shadow is weakness, fear, pain, tears, all the things they were taught a father should never have. And the longer they live, the bigger the shadow becomes. They don't realize the shadow doesn't disappear when ignored. It simply controls us from beneath, making us angry for no reason, cold toward those we love, distant from our children, and ultimately estranged from ourselves. Perhaps on Father's Day, the deepest act is not giving a gift or making a meal, but having the courage to look into the eyes of the man who has been silent his whole life and ask, "Dad, do I truly understand you?" Perhaps the greatest act is not expecting our fathers to do something for us, but asking ourselves, how have I lived as a father? Am I passing on my own unhealed wounds to my children? The absence of a father is not always physical. Sometimes it is emotional, spiritual. A father can be sitting right there, but be so far away, bound by work, duty, prejudice, unnamed pain, and a childhood never fully embraced. We must have the courage to name these things, because only when we name the shadow, it no longer controls us. Only when we accept the Father within ourselves, both the light and the dark, do we truly become grown men. Only then can we pass down something whole to the next generation. And perhaps the deepest wound is not the absence of a father, but having one so broken he cannot love, cannot listen, cannot be present. In depth psychology, this is called the father wound. It is not just the pain caused by a father, but the emptiness left by his absence. It is rigidity instead of guidance, control instead of direction, coldness instead of affirmation. It is a wound that doesn't bleed, but is passed from generation to generation, like an invisible language etched into our bones, our skin, our souls. A child who lacks the support of a father learns to support himself by becoming either too tough or too distant. He will project his hunger for a father onto other figures, teachers, bosses, even extreme ideologies. We're not seeking control. We are seeking someone to say, "You're okay. I'm here." But when that voice never arrives, the child inside us keeps searching. And if we never awaken, he will search forever. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The father wound, if left unexamined, becomes destiny. A controlling father breeds either a rebellious child or a replica of tyranny. An absent father breeds children who don't know how to feel safe. And then those children grow up, start families, become parents themselves, and pass that wound along, like a psychological reincarnation. There is another concept we must mention, the inner child. This is the softest, most fragile, and sensitive part within each of us. It never grows up. It remembers everything, from the scoldings to the cold stares, from the moments of abandonment to the promises never kept. That child may need nothing more than a single embrace, a single whisper, "You are good enough. I'm proud of you." But when that moment never comes, the child doesn't die. It hides, silently steering every decision we make. It makes us react like children to criticism, freeze when rejected, lash out at our own kids because we never learned how to be loved properly. A grown man may wear a perfect suit, drive a luxury car, be a CEO or a hero, and still be a lost child inside. A boy never hugged by his father, and this is where depth psychology offers its most sacred invitation. Not to blame parents, not to fault the previous generation, but to face the wound, to realize, if my father hurt me, perhaps he was once a hurt child too. And if I don't stop it now, this wound will keep bleeding through my children, my grandchildren, through the history I am writing with my own life. We can't go back and fix our childhood, but we can become the father we once needed, not for the past, but for the present, for the future, for the inner child still waiting for someone to say, "Come here. You don't have to run anymore. I'm here." Jung didn't just study psychology. He spoke of the soul. He said the shadow, the inner child, the father wound. These are not just concepts, but living parts, whispering inside us. And if we dare to listen, dare to walk the path of confrontation, then even in the rubble, something will begin to awaken. When a man dares to revisit his childhood, not to blame, but to understand, he begins to become a true father, not perfect, just present, just honest, just willing to say, "I too was afraid. I too was lost. I too was hurt. But I am learning to heal, so you don't have to carry this anymore." That is how a true father is born. Not by blood, but by awakening. And when a father awakens, his entire timeline begins to tremble. Frozen memories start to thaw. Silent spaces within the inner child become room to breathe, to be loved, to be seen. No longer the father he feared, but the father he chose to become. Perhaps on Father's Day, what matters most is not gifts, not wishes, but silence. 1 minute of stillness to look deeply into your father's eyes, if he's still alive, and ask, "Dad, what were you most afraid of?" And if your father is gone, look within, because a part of him still lives in your breath, in your eyes, in your unconscious choices, even in your unspoken pain. All of it still tells the story that was never said aloud. Depth psychology doesn't offer easy answers. It offers a mirror and a light. To descend into the basement of your soul, to face the shadow, the child, the wound, and the longing for love you once buried. And there, in the dark, you will find the seed of light. Jung believed true maturity comes not from success, but from integration. Integration means not denial, but embrace. Not rejecting the shadow, but inviting it to sit down. Not destroying pain, but listening to it like a lost child. And slowly, layer by layer, the ice within begins to melt, and something older than language begins to bloom again. On Father's Day, let this question echo in your heart. Have I ever sat with my father, just once, with an empty heart, no expectations, no blame, just to understand who he is? If not, then it's not too late. If your father is still alive, perhaps he's waiting for that moment too, even if he'll never say it. If he's gone, write him a letter. Not for him to read, but for you to release what's been stuck. The words unsaid, the tears never cried, the embraces missed. And if you are a father, or will be one, know this. Your presence matters more than any advice. Your healed heart will be a lighthouse for the small souls you are guiding. Your children don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to be real. To say, I'm learning to love. I've been hurt too, but I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. We don't need great fathers. We need brave ones. Brave enough to admit they don't know it all, that they've made mistakes, that they've been broken. But they are learning to be human again, not just for themselves, but for the generations to come. And perhaps, when a man dares to sit down and cry for his father, that's when he begins to heal not only himself, but all those who never got the chance to do so. Carl Jung once wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents." So if you are hearing this, and a part of your life was forgotten, buried, go back, live it. Not just for you, but for your father, for the child within you, and for those watching you to learn how to be human. You don't need to be the perfect father. You just need to be yourself in an honest, awakened, compassionate journey. Because in the end, no father is a symbol. There are only men trying each day to love, to heal, to be present, and to stop the wounds they once carried from being passed on. Today, if you still have your father, call him. If he's gone, close your eyes and say what you never dared to. And if you are a father, hold your child tight and say, I'm here. Because sometimes that's all a soul needs, to begin to bloom.